onto the major disruption as a result of Storm Gerrit. Some homes in Scotland are dealing with flooding this morning, and many areas have been covered in snow.
ScotRail says there has been widespread disruption to services with no trains running in some areas, whilst Highland Council declared a major incident on the A9 after queues of vehicles stretching for miles were stuck in the snow. Well, let's get more on this now with travel expert Simon Calder. Simon, you're at Paddington Station. Now, Paddington's been closed for 4 days, but I don't think that was anything to do with the weather. But how are things looking today?
Good morning to you both. Yes, it was actually closed for work on HS2, if anybody remembers that line from somewhere near London to somewhere near Birmingham. The great news is actually from here that services are running absolutely as they should be. Everything has been very smooth, as opposed to the unfortunate events at London St Pancras International yesterday, where they had Christmas engineering works. They switched on the signals after they fixed them and they didn't work, leading to utter chaos for the entire day. Now, as you say, ScotRail is still seeing problems. What's happening is, in all the lines that were closed yesterday, which includes pretty much everything north of Dundee, north of Perth, the West Highland line and so on, they are not going to be running any passenger trains until they have actually had a good look in daylight. Now, anybody who's in the north of Scotland will know it's dark. Sunrise in Inverness is at 9:01 today, and therefore it's not really going to be later in the morning that trains will be running on those. And also in Scotland, well, the roads are clearing, particularly that A9 link between Perth and Inverness, but ferries are still heavily disrupted. Cancellations have begun already on Caledonian McBrain services, and there will be problems there.
Simon, I feel like this happens every single year. How is it that our roads and our railways keep getting caught out? We've done it before, and it will happen next year as well.
Well, it always happens a bit differently. I've been covering festive getaways pretty much since the Nativity, and there's always something that goes wrong. Well, I mean, the big surprise this year was, of course, the strike by French Channel tunnel workers, which closed the tunnel, shortly before Christmas. That was very, very disruptive.
Think we've lost Simon. We'll try to get Simon back, but you've been sending us your messages about how the bad weather has been affecting you and your Christmas plans. Of course, we were asking, has Storm Gerrit ruined your Christmas, or have you been okay? And I know a number of you have said that you have been affected. And one thing that Simon was saying, he was joking there about saying that he'd been covering these stories since the Nativity. In some ways, I'm a bit more sympathetic this Christmas because there's a proper storm, there's a proper weather. I think we can go back to Simon. Simon, I was just saying to JJ, in some ways I'm a bit more sympathetic this year because at least there is a proper weather event, Storm Gerrit, which has caused some or most of these problems, rather than it just being our useless infrastructure.
Well, yeah, good point. And certainly that we are seeing a lot of storm impacts. Yesterday, we saw both the East Coast and the West Coast main lines closed because of bad weather. But I tell you what, there's other deep-rooted problems. If you look at LNER on the East Coast main line today, they are cancelling and curtailing more than a dozen trains, but actually the main reason is staff shortage. So nothing to do with the weather, it's to do with generally not having enough train drivers available. So there are very deep-rooted problems. And what with the strikes, which have been disrupting travel for the last 18 months for those of us who depend on the railways, it's a very, very uncertain time. Can I just tell you about the planes as well?
Sure.
20 flights cancelled to and from London Heathrow by British Airways, destinations like Manchester, Glasgow, Edinburgh. You will be able to travel on alternative services on BA. That, they say, is because of air traffic control restrictions due to continuing Storm Gerrit.
All right, well, thank you very much, Simon. Simon Calder there in Paddington. Listen, I'm sick of this. It sounds like sick note Britain.
I know.
Staff shortages on the trains, some leaves on the railways. We can't operate the trains today. It's
and there
ridiculous.
I was trying to be nice and saying, oh, maybe it's the storm. But actually, Simon completely putting me right and saying, yes, the storm is a part of it, but not enough staff members, too many strikes the whole of this year, clogging up the system, and actually, as you said, creaking infrastructure. So we can blame the storm a bit for making a bad situation worse, even worse, but we can't put all the blame on the storm.